5:30, so we'll call to order this Monday for Monday, November 25th, 2019. Carl, can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
Ronayne.
Here.
Lunsman.
Here.
Reif.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Bunceness.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Rux.
Here.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Here, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business will be to approve last week's minutes for November 18th. Can I get a motion to do so?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion from Rux and a second from Olson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion does carry. We will submit those minutes. Next, we've got a proclamation for Small Business Saturday. Whereas the government of Aberdeen, South Dakota celebrates our small businesses and contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 30.2 million small businesses in America, and they represent 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States, and are responsible for 65.9% of the net new jobs created from 2000 to 2017. And whereas small businesses employ 47.5% of employees in the private sector in the United States, whereas 94% of consumers in the United States value the contributions small businesses make in their communities, and whereas 96% of consumers who plan to shop on Small Business Saturday said the day inspires them to go small, independently owned retailers or restaurants that they have not been to before or would not have otherwise tried, and whereas 92% of companies planning on promotions on Small Business Saturday said the day helps their businesses stand out during the busy holiday shopping season, and whereas 59% of small business owners said Small Business Saturday contributes significantly to their holiday sales each year, and whereas Aberdeen, South Dakota supports our small businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities, and whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed this Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Therefore, be it resolved, I, Travis Schoeneman, Mayor of Aberdeen, do hereby proclaim November 30th, 2019 as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on the Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. It looks like perhaps no one here is here to speak on that topic, so I will move along to the open forum. First, we've got the Exchange Club presenting the annual Firefighter, Paramedic, and Officer of the Year Award. You've got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm Melissa White, and I am the chair of the committee who has organized these awards this year. We're the responsible party for filling most of the gallery tonight, so it was truly our pleasure. Earlier today, in a lunch presentation, we had the opportunity to honor 3 gentlemen who are members of the police department and the Aberdeen Fire Rescue. So it was great to have them, their families, and representatives from each of their respective departments there for us to say thank you, not only for their service, but also for the services of those who support them every day. We take this opportunity the last few years to recognize them officially in front of the City Council. So we would like to take the opportunity to read their nominations and to represent their awards for your information. Officer Briston Bruce has been serving the City of Aberdeen with distinction since April of 2016. Officer Bruce is a very proactive officer who focuses on impaired driving and drug interdiction to make our streets safer. He is very well respected on the night shift and often counsels newer officers who frequently seek his advice. In the fall of 2017, the APD family was shaken by the news that Officer Bruce had developed a brain tumor. Officer Bruce made the courageous decision to fight back and underwent surgery to have the tumor removed. His department is thankful for his speedy and full recovery. Officer Bruce, aside from being an outstanding officer, is known as a family man. He and his wife Lily have 4 children, Liam, Benjamin, Natalie, and David. However, Officer Bruce has made many sacrifices for his commitment to the community's DARE program. He readily gives up time with his family and untold hours of sleep to continue his efforts to counsel children about the dangers of making bad decisions. In August of 2018, Officer Bruce was recognized for his important contributions to the city's DARE program. Those contributions continue to this day. Because of Officer Bruce's hard work and dedication to the Aberdeen Police Department and to our community, it is the Exchange Club of Aberdeen's privilege to recognize Officer Briston Bruce as the 2019 Law Enforcement Officer. And I believe Briston still has his plaque, so I won't ask him to come up again. But later we would like to introduce all of you personally to the City Council. This year's Firefighter of the Year award goes to someone who every day shows leadership, mentorship, dedication, desire, integrity, a never-quit attitude, and a personal desire to leave something better than they found it. Mike Remick has developed and led the Aberdeen Fire Rescue Fire Academy training program for new firefighters of Aberdeen Fire Rescue. Mike has taught 2 40-hour aircraft rescue firefighter courses this past year and coordinates and maintains all of the ARFF trainings and documentation. Mike has helped teach the emergency medical technician, urban search and rescue, rope rescue, and ice rescue classes. Mike is always teaching and training and has more training hours, 410 to date, than anyone else in the department. He has never quit learning and creating a better department and firefighter within. Mike is an excellent officer who has been put into many lead or command positions during training exercises and at times incident response. All of Aberdeen Fire Rescue's personnel contribute to the goals of the department, but Mike understands Aberdeen Fire Rescue's need for highly trained firefighters and has demonstrated this through his actions. It is the Exchange Club of Aberdeen's privilege to recognize Mike Remick as the 2019 Firefighter of the Year for his outstanding service to the citizens of the community of Aberdeen. Chris Scott has added a great year to his career at Aberdeen Fire Rescue. He obtained his Urban Search and Rescue Medic certification in Orlando, Florida, joining only a handful of paramedics in the Midwest with the same certification. This spring, he attended hazmat chemistry training and also completed the Aberdeen Fire Rescue Mentor Program. This summer, Chris took over as the field training officer for our shift. He has spent many hours training new emergency medical technicians and paramedics. Chris attended the EMS World Conference in New Orleans. There he took part in cutting-edge EMS training to bring back to the fire and rescue department. Chris obtained certification this summer as an aircraft rescue firefighter. He quickly became proficient in firefighting on an airfield. Chris has been an instructor in Aberdeen Fire Rescue's EMT and paramedic courses. He also continues to lead the charge on the department's recruiting efforts. He regularly visits schools and paramedic programs seeking out future paramedics for the department. This year, firefighter-paramedic Scott also became very active in the Aberdeen Fire Rescue Explorer program, working with the youth in the area to develop interest in the career of firefighting and EMS. He works with explorers on and off duty, and he understands that helping train these area youth is crucial to replenishing the ranks of firefighters and first responders in the area. Chris was active duty military before becoming a firefighter-paramedic with Aberdeen Fire Rescue. His military background has helped firefighter-paramedic Scott quickly attain one of the most well-rounded skill sets in the department. Firefighter-paramedic Scott has had an incredible year, and the time spent working with area youth has made him an incredible asset to the community. It is the Exchange Club of Aberdeen's privilege to recognize Chris Scott Chris Scott as the 2019 Emergency Medical Person of the Year for his outstanding service to the citizens of the community of Aberdeen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Melissa. And would each of the recipients please make your way around so we can shake your hands?
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you for your service. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thanks for your service.
Congratulations. Chris, great.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
How big of a wide angle do you have?
Well, not, you guys wanna come on with or? All right, very good, thank you.
There's Jim. Next, we've got one open forum sign-up from the public. Mr. Lawrence Diggs, here to speak to us about inmate re-entry. Lawrence, make your way to the podium if you would, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lawrence Diggs. I'm a chaplain at the prison in South Dakota here. For a long time, we have used incarceration as a way to get out of our social and medical problems. That has brought the country into one of the highest, well, the highest rate of incarceration in the world, far exceeding everyone else. Mm-hmm. And in South Dakota in particular, we have pretty much the same demographics, but we have about twice as many people in prison as North Dakota. Let that sink in for a while. The state has let that sink in, and they're turning around. They're trying new approaches. And what that means for us is that a lot of people will be getting out of prison. They're shortening sentences. They are making parole easier and making lots of efforts on the administrative side in the prison to get people back into normal life. What that means for us is we will be dealing with the people who come out of prison. As a person who's working with these people all the time, many of them are actually in better shape in terms of their inward reflection than most of the people I meet on the street. But that said, there are quite a few people who are not ready to come out on the street. But they will have in some cases, flattered their sentence. So they have done the maximum time that they have sentenced. They're not on parole or anything, and they will be coming back to us. The unfortunate part of that is many of those people will be going back into prison, and they will be hurting people along the way as they're going back. Prison will not be the answer. It will not fix anything like it hasn't fixed things before. Just to give you a kind of bird's eye view of why that can't be, is because even if you go into prison as a person who's capable of negotiating life on the outside, if you spend 15 years, 5, 10, 15 years in prison, you have to learn a different set of social skills. You have, in the last 5, 10, or 15 years, never done your own laundry. You have never even gone to a grocery store, let alone fix your own meal. Everyone that you know in the last 15 years will be still in prison, and you will come out and the world will be an abyss. You will not have really even held a cell phone, let alone know how to use one. You will have heard of the internet, but have never gone on it or used anything. It would be like something you saw on TV. Worse is that terrible loneliness. Most of us here have never showered or taken a bath with our family. With these guys, everybody they know and love, they eat with, they bunk with, they shower with. That's been their whole family for 5, 10, or 15 years. And now they're out, and we have to deal with them. The problem is not them, really. It's us. It's us because we're not ready to adjust to them. And they can't get ready to adjust to us. Yes, we have some programs in the prison that we're trying to do some things, but there's only so much. It's like taking a chemistry class and just reading about chemistry, but never having done an experiment. You don't really know what you're doing. So I'm here this evening because this is the city of Aberdeen. The people in this room are the people who are in charge of many of the things that we're doing in the city of Aberdeen. You have a lot of resources at your disposal. And I want to call those resources into play to help us to prepare for the growing number of inmates who will be coming back to this city, and to do something other than have them just go back. This, we call it life on the revolving plan, is not working for them, and certainly, my friends, it's not working for us. Because when those people go back to prison, they're going back because they hurt somebody. Hurt people, hurt people. To that end, on the 5th of December, we have an inmate art show at the Ark. I'm certain all of you are familiar with the Ark. We have an annual inmate art show. These are art pieces from all over the women's prison, Yankton, and of course the Sioux Falls facility, both of two of the facilities in Sioux Falls. And I use that platform to have a conversation about reentry and recidivism. And I want to encourage each of you to show up and bring anybody else who has any kind of resources in this city. Not that we're going to solve a problem. That would be ridiculous, really, with the size of the problem. But we can start a conversation, and we can brainstorm, and we can crowdsource solutions. We're probably not going to solve all of the problems, but every one that we solve will help the city and the citizens of this city. The conversation is going to be December 5th. We have the artist reception is 5 to 7, and I'll have a film about Gregory Boyle, who's a priest who's been doing gang work in California, in Southern California, and he's world known for that. And he will be in South Dakota next year, coming to speak in Sioux Falls. But I urge you to attend after the reception from about 7 to 9 is when we're going to have the film and the discussion. And again, I would encourage all of you to come and to encourage all of the people who are responsible for the city to come as well.
Lawrence, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. And thank you for the invitation.
Sure.
I will mark it on my personal calendar and encourage the rest of us to do as well if you've got time. Next, we'll move to the consent calendar items. We've got items A through D, the routine city business. Can I get a motion for those consent calendar items?
Move to approve.
Second.
Does anyone have any discussion as it relates to any of those four issues? Otherwise, all in favor of, we've got a motion from Remley, second from Ronayne. All in favor of passing the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. Next, we'll move to the new business ordinance 19-11-01, ordinance to rezone from R3 district to R3HC districts for Lot 3 Haggerty's subdivision in Aberdeen, 601 2nd Avenue Southeast. Possible first reading of ordinance 19-11-01. Brett, what can you tell us about that?
The hospital is requesting this in order to avoid split zoning on a piece of property they recently acquired. They're going to combine it with vacated right-of-way in a current piece of property they own. So in essence, it's to avoid split zoning. Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
I've got a motion from Johnson and a second from Rux. Does anyone have any questions for Brett while he's talking on the topic? Otherwise, Carl, please give us a roll call vote.
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
All right.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye. Motion does carry. Next, we've got ordinance 1911-02, ordinance amending the city code regarding nuisance fire alarms. Possible first reading of ordinance 19-11-02. And we've got Chad and Randy here. Floor is yours. Tell us a little bit about your intention with the nuisance fire alarm ordinance.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to come and present this to you tonight. When I started with the fire marshal position back in May, Chief Meister said this was something that we really need to address. We sat down and kind of went over some numbers and saw that there was a problem out there with some of these reoccurring nuisance alarms. And then we kind of went to work seeing what other communities had done to solve some of the issues. We worked with Ron in putting the ordinance together. We put together an information packet for everyone to look at, and I think at this point, just open it up to any questions you might have.
Move to approve.
So the primary purpose of the ordinance, from what I could gather reading it, was you'll require people essentially, once they've triggered the alarm, to make updates within a certain amount of time.
When it becomes excessive nuisance activations, and a nuisance activation would be something by means other than an expected trigger. So for example, we've had one property, we looked at kind of the three reoccurring properties that we've had, and we've worked with all three of them actually and have been successful in reducing them. One property had 3 activations in a matter of 2 weeks just from kids pulling pull stations. Pretty simple fix there to put guards on them. This wouldn't really start until we have a situation like that. Again, our intention is to work with them, try to resolve the problem that's in everyone's interest. So this would be really kind of more of a last resort type thing. The other side of it in, abating the issue gets pretty drawn out and it involves more parties. Ultimately, if we deem the place unsafe, then we're having to evict tenants. And it puts a burden on them instead of on the owners to correct the issue.
Sure. So the circumstance, children pulling is obviously big no-no. What were the other triggers that were happening in some of these properties?
It really does vary. Sometimes outdated equipment that just malfunctions. And there with this is just getting that corrected and updated. Burnt cooking food, once or twice is not a problem. If it becomes 7 times in 7 days, then it's a problem. And there, try to do more education stuff with the people that are doing that rather than just jumping into a nuisance classification. So it's, defining a nuisance is somewhat subjective. But again,
When you show up and there's no fire, what do you call it, right?
What caused it, I guess, is what it boils down to. If it's malfunctioning equipment, then it's a nuisance. And that seems to be the large bulk of what we run into.
So what type of businesses are we talking about?
It really varies all over.
Couple dormitories.
Okay, and so that's where you're asking them to put shields on? Or
No,
No.
that's the cooking, maybe?
that was the cooking, a lot of the cooking, and then some of that also was location of smoke detectors. We worked with the maintenance department and the engineering to change out a smoke to a heat, to get away from that close. I mean, it's a lot of education also
Okay.
to the properties we've been going to, and we've had, like Chad said, really good luck with working with people. So it's
So these commercial businesses get 3 opportunities in a calendar year before it raises to a higher level?
Correct, yes.
And so kind of walk through that process and what you envision happening.
And in the packet that you got, there was some different forms. The first one, we would make note of what the cause of it was, if it's determined to be a nuisance activation, malfunctioning equipment or something. We would notify that we have documented it as a nuisance activation, something they need to get worked on, hire a technician to come in and do it. Kind of the same thing with the second and third one. The third one, they would be warned that the subsequent one, there could incur a penalty with that.
So how do you feel about, so what do you think after the third one? Do you lose all flexibility with this, or do you still maintain flexibility into addressing individual cases that,
I'd say case by case.
okay,
Yeah, and I think it really has to be a case by case. Even if after the second one, they've had technicians in and they're just running into problems and we have 5 more, as long as they're working on it, to me, that would still fall under the second one. It's where this head needs to be replaced and we come back 2 weeks later and it's the same head and they don't want to fix it, that's when it starts to escalate.
so good communication by the business owner to you would really
Yes,
help the
yes.
That's where
situation?
we've been already with the instances, so.
Okay. So are we talking schools, is where the alarm is being pulled, or places, daycares?
No.
I mean, you're gonna make me guess the whole gamut, or you're gonna,
And I don't know if we want to mention specific.
I don't have to do specifics, but you can at least tell what kind of general business they're in, or, I mean, is that gonna give it away?
That would give it away.
Yeah, it would give it away.
Okay,
They're working with us, so it's.
okay,
it's-
all
Yeah,
right,
and the solution was very well received, and
okay.
they are looking at doing that.
Great.
So the surprising thing here was the number of calls that you're classifying as false alarms was significant compared to the total number of calls that you received. So
Which-
that's why you're here.
Yeah, over a 4-year period, it's right around 21, 22% of the calls that we respond to are of that nature.
So have any of these false alarm calls created issues with the department that, you have an active event that's happening someplace else that you're taking resources to go to a false alarm? Is that what you're trying to avoid here?
Yes, I mean, we've already run enough EMS calls and we're just busier now, so if we can start eliminating some of these, plus you think of the dollar amounts going down the road, I mean, you gotta treat every call as a real emergency, so you can't just have one truck go check it out the one time you do that.
Right.
A real fire, so, I mean, you still have to have the same amount of resources going, so.
And I think in your instance, a lot of these false alarms, like you say, having a heat sensor, but it could be a malfunctioning panel, an older panel that may have issues, poor batteries. And I think what a lot of people don't realize it is in fire code that in many instances these be inspected and maintained.
Correct, yes.
And so basically, and I see it, there's many that no one's ever touched. And then you just know that at some point there's going to be problems. I think this is, like I say, one of those things where as long as you're working with people, I think it's a good system to do, because it is basically still under code that they need to maintain these. And it's an important system. You know, Malchows, if it would have had a integrated smoke detection system instead of maybe smoke detectors, may have had a little more warning. But it is still, especially for your schools, hotels, retail businesses, they all have these similar type systems. It's an important thing to give that early warning out.
Councilman Johnson, have you got a question?
I do have a question. I'm glad we're talking about this. The numbers are interesting, and 1,000 false alarm calls in 4 years. I know that's a lot, and the obligation is there to service each one and take them seriously. How does the percentage of 20 to 25% of our total being a false alarm compare with other municipalities, maybe around the state or in the Midwest?
I called, talked to chiefs in Sioux Falls, Brookings, Yankton, Watertown, and they're all in that 20s.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And
Other cities also have a structure kind of like what we're trying to build.
what we're amping up to do,
Yep.
which I think is good. I think there's a need for it. Other cities who have implemented a similar enforcement protocol, do they see a significant drop?
Yes.
Okay.
Watertown and Brookings definitely did. And they've really never gone after the money side. It's more of a communication to get things fixed versus coming in where and start billing you. That was never the intent behind it. It was, communication goes a lot further, so.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Josh?
Just for comparison, I before I moved to Aberdeen, I lived in Omaha, and we had a security system. And we had a false alarm. It went off. The police came out and told them it was a false alarm. They said, okay. And 2 weeks later, we got a bill for $150. And that was the first one. So I think what we're setting up is probably more than fair, would be my guess.
I think I got one more guess. City Hall.
All the children. You caught me.
He wants to get out early on Friday.
So we had a motion from Ronayne. I didn't catch who seconded that motion from Remley. Motion from Ronayne, second from Remley. Carl, can you give us a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rux,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and after the first of the year, I hope to be back, kind of work through all of our fire ordinances and clean them up and make them more usable and accessible for everyone in the public, so hope to see you guys back here soon, so.
We'll be here. Good. Every Monday. Next item to discuss is ordinance 1911-03, ordinance setting up the salaries and wages of city officials and employees for the upcoming year, possible first reading of ordinance 19-11-03. Carl, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the annual ordinance that we pass for the salaries. We're required to do that by state statute. It lists all the different individuals and either their biweekly or their hourly rate. You'll note that the council member salaries are noted to be biweekly, and it'll be published that way. I do have to point out a correction to include Josh Reif as a council member rather than the old council member. It will be corrected for second reading, too.
Have you been getting paid, Josh? Just making sure.
He thought this was a
Better
free
check the
job.
name on the paycheck.
Can I get a motion for the first reading, to pass the first reading of this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
I've got a motion from Johnson, a second from Ronayne. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Could I have a comment?
Oh, please.
Yeah, I'm in support of this, of course, but one of the things I think we are failing to keep our eye on is some of our more senior employees in the city. And I'm talking both about staff that work directly for us, but also department heads. We've got some very experienced employees, and I really think they're the strength behind this city. They're really why this city runs on time. It's really why we don't get calls every night from disgruntled citizens. They do a terrific job. We have a system where they get cost of living increases on an annual basis, but they also typically get little bumps in their salary, steps they're called, every 2 years. And many of our more senior department heads, folks that work directly for us, are beyond the point where they are entitled to those anymore. And I guess I'm told that there's no real problem during this process this year. But in future years, these folks are not going to be entitled to those steps. As important as it is for us to recruit great employees, and the city has been great, Jill's been great, her predecessors have been great, the other goal has got to be retention. And I think those steps are important for purposes of retaining these really key employees that we have. We're getting more and more gray hair here, which means experience, means institutional knowledge. We want to keep these people here, and I think during the next year we want to talk about how we build some more steps in to retain these very key employees that the city benefits from.
So, Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, every once in a while, I can't remember the years between, we typically do a salary study, and that tends to address this issue?
Not necessarily.
We've done salary studies every 10 years. What it does is it goes and it compares to where we are within industry and comparable cities to make certain that we've stayed within the CPI index, but it doesn't really address what I call longevity.
But it does compare individual positions to the market.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in essence you are addressing that issue.
Yeah, and I with all due respect, Dave, I don't think so. I think the expectation has been that we don't need these steps after a while because these folks aren't going anywhere, maybe, or.
No, I don't think that's ever been the.
But or perhaps the expectation was that they weren't going to outlive the number of steps. But we've got folks here that will.
Well, in some regard, the step system, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it was used because you gain the knowledge of your position, and that happens over so many years, and after that, you are not. I mean, you're not. You get rewarded for that up front, basically, in the step system, and then 10 years comes by and we do a market study and that reflects the change that needs to happen. I don't have a problem revisiting it, but it's really understanding what the step system is meant to accomplish.
Well, I don't think in the time we've been here, we've ever had anyone come close to it because most of the time after, I think it goes to M right now, on the steps, have probably sort of maybe retired out. But it is one of those things where I sit there and look at it, and the salary study is nice, but I think that gets to where the job start point should be. But should those people who have been with us forever not be rewarded continually for longevity, I don't know if I'm there either. And it could be as simple as, you know what, it goes by M, and we can go to Z. I think the effort should be to not only recruit great people, but recruit them in an atmosphere where they will be here for the long term. And you look at someone who may be maybe a department head at 30, they're going to run out of steps by the time they get some point if you want to keep them here forever. And I think that's probably a distinction we just haven't really made before. I think the salary study is great to sort of get us back to where people, especially those who are just starting out, should be paid to keep us competitive. But I don't think it keeps us in line with what we need to do to keep people here for 25, 30 years. And you know, yeah, times change. I don't think they get to a point where, I mean, in any job nowadays, they're continually learning. And with each passing year, as we have seen in so many situations, they become actually more valuable to us. And, you know, we always sit there and are grateful for the years of service when they retire. But in a way, you almost wish, boy, could you work 5 more years? It would just be great. But I'd like to revisit this, and I think it's just as easy as just creating a longer chart And you know, at some point, you're going to run into a maximum where no one will ever meet it, because even if they start at, you know, 30, they're going to be retired by the time they get to it. But I think keeping people is, you know, the best way to keep, especially things efficient in government, and keep that institutional knowledge here. The longer you can keep them, the better they are.
So that you know, the chart is also meant for the people that are starting out, the mid-level management level, giving them incentive to continue to grow in their knowledge and move up. And if you just expand the chart, you don't give any incentive for that to happen. So there's a lot of theory, a lot of, you know, thought that goes into these things. And when's the last time that we did a salary study?
2016.
So we're not that far away from it. Okay.
Were there adjustments made in 2016 after that evaluation?
Yes, yes, there was. However, for the most part, when you looked at the CPI index, we were relatively close, but when you looked at changes within duties and responsibilities for some of the various different positions, we had to make adjustments, and other cities made adjustments too.
So are you proposing that we look at this sooner than?
I would like that, and I don't, by the way, claim to have the answer. I think your comment, particularly about other than our department heads and the folks that work directly for us, I think that is probably, I think that's a point well taken. So I don't know where this really ends, but I think we want to see if there's, if it's in our interest, and I think it is, to encourage more retention among some of these valued key employees. So yes, I would like us to
give that to
somehow review
Linda
it in the future, and
work on.
maybe we need some explanation from Jill how it works and when it really ends. Not right now. You can have a few minutes to prepare.
Sounds good. So
Thank you, Mayor.
basically, the homework gives us until the 2021 salary discussion, or are we talking about for the?
I would hope we would do it right before next fall. Yeah, I would hope that we would, while this is kind of fresh in our minds, maybe we can start talking about it here the next few months.
Sounds good. So are you on board? We had a motion and a second, and I definitely lost track of those at this stage in the game. Did someone motion to approve the salaries as they stand listed before us? Someone did?
Yes.
Okay, that was you.
It was.
Johnson and Ronayne or Lunsman?
No, I just sound like him tonight.
Okay, yeah, I know you really sound alike tonight.
Sounds like. Well, it's never a good first ordinance reading if we don't get homework out of the deal. So, Carl, take a roll call vote on that, please.
Councilmember Remley?
Aye.
Ronayne?
Aye.
Lunsman?
Aye.
Rife?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Bunceness?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Rux?
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman?
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got consider expanding criteria and stated goals of the annual allocation of the promotional funds, possible approval of the governing body agreeing to set priorities for the promotion funds as listed. And I'll kick that over to Josh, and I will recuse myself of any discussion in this matter.
Yeah, so we had talked about forming a group to further look into the promotional fund. And we did. It was made up of Councilman Remley, Ronayne, Rux, and myself. I guess all ours, I just realized that. Anyway, and Lynn was present as well. And we talked a lot, and some of the things at the end that we really found 4 points that we agreed that we should have some further discussion on. And I'll just read all 4, and then at the end we can maybe go back to A. The first was that we thought it would be wise to focus the promotion fund allocation on capital expenditures and promotional activities, and at the same time discourage funds from being used for operational purposes. B was to discuss and list what activities the city council is unwilling to fund. C is to prepare resolutions concerning the funding of multi-year commitments. And the last was to require at least semi-annual presentations for the following agencies listed below that receive over $100,000 in promotional funds. Those are the Aberdeen Downtown Association, Aberdeen Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Aberdeen Chamber of Commerce. So now I'll open up to discussion, and maybe just go to A. If anyone, let's discuss them in order. And if I've left anything out, Mark or Rob or Clint, feel free to jump in. So does anyone have any discussions on the first topic, that the promotion fund allocation should focus on capital expenditures and purely promotional activities versus operation expenditures or operating expenditures?
Well, we've done a little bit of this over the years, and I don't particularly have an issue limiting this to just capital expenditures and promotional activities. I think that's fine, in my opinion. I think that's probably the intent all along.
Over the last few years, we've seen a trend where a greater share of the promotional fund has been utilized to capital expenditures, a number of requests that involve multi-year commitments. But we still call it a promotional fund, and I know that this isn't, this is somewhat making it official. It's a small detail, but I would prefer to see promotional activities leapfrog and be listed. So it says fund allocation on promotional activities and capital expenditures.
That makes sense.
More of a
One is before
priority.
the other.
Yep, I agree with that. Part B was to discuss and list what activities the city council is unwilling to fund. Go ahead.
Well, I just don't, I don't like the word unwilling, because, you know, we do get some things that might be a good 1 year thing. I like less likely to fund, would probably be a better language than unwilling, because it's not saying that we're not going to fund it, but everyone has a right in this forum to plead their case. And we as 9 individuals have every right to make a decision based on the merits of it. But I do think that the list of things maybe we won't probably support funding are probably a lot smaller than what we are willing as individuals to fund.
You know, one thing that was brought up was if the city council does fund some capital improvements, let's say a building, and once that's completed, would we be interested in saying we want to limit your ask of the city council promotional fund for a certain period of time? Is that something that we would be open to?
So that's what you mean by unwilling to fund?
Or maybe less likely would be Clint's term, which I think is probably better. And if so, what would that time frame be? 3 years, 5 years? I mean, what would you consider?
I'm not sure do we need to get into those details?
Probably not.
Because there's situations that will occur more than likely that will say we need to, potentially help.
Each request will have its own merits, and I
Right.
think the less detail there, the more we can accommodate where possible the request.
So were there some other examples that you were thinking about? I think of the promotion fund and what we have going on there today. Are there
There were some
activities that-
examples.
Okay.
But not all of us agreed on the examples. So that's why the point was there. Maybe it's a good discussion topic. If we can come up with other possible scenarios where, just for guidance to the people who are applying, to say, am I in the more than likely to get funded category versus the less likely?
In truth, aren't most of the ones that don't rise to the level of council acceptance the ones where they are, in essence, asking for operational expenses to be assisted with? I think, the second sentence of Part A is going to cover most of those. And I think in the past, not so much in the last year or two, we've had inquiries from people who wanted to have, more of what the funds from the Hotel Alliance might be provided, just a stipend or something, just a check that's presented that way. I think people have started to figure out that that's a path to follow, not so much approaching the council for that kind of money.
And there used to be people back when we started that were like that.
Right.
Who, I just need, most of it was ongoing, but it was stuff that just, hey, and that was one of the reasons the bid was created, was to help, funnel especially those organizations that maybe want to start an event, they can get money better from there than waiting a whole year from us. It's a much quicker avenue. And so that's, like I say, a good route that a lot of our list has been weeded out over time just because, that's not us. You got to plan a year and a half out before you're going to get money.
So, Alan, are you saying that A kind of takes care of B? For
Not entirely, but I think a lot of there's overlap between the two.
And I want to go back to A.
We've already passed it. We can't go back.
No. So when we're talking about promotional activities, I'm thinking, okay, and operational purposes, I'm thinking of Casey out here that's completely funded by this fund, and a lot of, it's operational. He's got to pay salaries, and
Sure.
but the whole organization is about promotion. So how do we define that?
We thought of the CVB in particular and thought that fell under the promotional activities realm, and that would come. And they're kind of an outlier. It's in this a little bit.
So there's going to be some interpretation of
Absolutely.
promotion activities. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Well, and I think it comes to each one of us may have our own idea of what may be a promotion.
Well, we've done, yeah.
I know.
The only thing
15
we
years
agreed
we've
on-
been doing that.
But what we agreed on was not operating funds. We all agreed on that. There's a lot of areas we couldn't find agreement on, but we all agreed kind of on that premise. And I think that's probably unanimous, I would think.
Yeah, I think we all consider the three listed there as legacy organizations that will always,
Right.
have be treated well by the council when they make the request.
And C, can I move on? Is that?
It's your deal.
Okay,
Yeah.
my deal.
You might come back to A.
Okay, we'll come back. C was just to say, and we've done it in some cases, but when you make a multi-year commitment, maybe preparing a resolution that says it's hard because it's hard to handcuff future councils, let's say, but just to express our commitment to fulfilling our promise of a multi-year commitment, which I think is pretty. If the council has agreed to do it, we should stand by that commitment going forward.
And that was one thing, like with the Boys and Girls Club, we did, and they needed it for their funding. But I think it would have been, if we're doing those multi-year, and like I say, can't hamstring the council, but at least shows the intent of the council at the time, then in some instances where we're coming back and, as we change, there's less and less people who may have been around when that type of situation may have been happening. At least then with the resolution, it's one of those where, yes, a council can change it, but there's going to have to be a vote on it instead of just, you didn't get funding from the council members on a form. I think it provides more purpose.
So to me, that's a reminder that is brought forward by staff that says, hey, you've made this commitment. Every year that we do promotion funds, we need to have those in front of us to remind us that we've made this long-term commitment.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to forget about things.
Well, not
So-
only that, I think there's new people that come on the board that may have not known about
Mhm.
that anyway, and it's a good reminder for new people to let them know we did. And I think for funding for long-term anyway, it's really hard for a lot of people to get that funding unless they know they're going to get that money over the course of a year. If we pull it out from under them, it could be detrimental to a project.
Imagine if the BMX club, which we didn't do a resolution for, and we've been really good to them, all of a sudden one year, 3 or 4 change on the council and they decide, we're going to do something else, and they don't get funding. What happens to their project? They're now trying to go out and get other funding, but at least a resolution will provide at least some continuity, or at least, hey, you guys, this was made a commitment even though something might have changed.
From an administrative perspective, that would work very well when I do the notification of available funds. If in fact we continue to do resolutions of support, then I could add it to the packet so you know exactly where you stand.
Just a reminder that it would be a resolution of support, but by statute, the
not
council
binding.
can
Yeah,
only
it's not
approve
binding.
1 year
Mhm.
at a time.
Okay.
Back to reality.
Any other discussion? I mean, I feel we should do that,
Yeah,
even if it.
I think it's a good idea.
And the last part D was to require at least semi-annual presentations for the Downtown Association, the CVB, and the Chamber. And speaking to Casey briefly, he was definitely open to semi-annual versus quarterly, but he wanted to choose when to match when he had the most information to share semi-annually. So I think as long as we're open to when those semi-annual presentations are, I think people will.
So he doesn't want to do quarterly anymore?
He didn't say that. He actually said he'd be fine with quarterly.
So this little
But I talked him
subcommittee,
back
the
to semi-
subcommittee doesn't want to hear from him on a quarterly basis? Is that what you're saying? The 3 Rs don't want
I'm
to hear from
implying
him?
that. I didn't say it. I didn't imply it.
He's-
But no, I did mention to Josh that, for us, reporting, between the first quarter and second quarter, and between the third quarter and fourth quarter, might give you a full aspect of vacation versus, shoulder and state tournaments.
So that's a minimum.
Minimum.
They can come more.
I actually think that quarterly would still be good, but only 2 of those would have to be in front of the council, and they could pick. Like Casey, it might be better doing it, in the spring after all the events have gone on. There's kind of a lull, and then maybe after hunting season where, there's maybe more solid numbers. But I still think, they could email it to us quarterly, and we could read it if we want or whatever, but just twice come before us.
And there was some confusion on the other Downtown Association, the Chamber, and this just sort of almost codifies it and say, yes, we want to hear from you semi-annually. Anything else? Good? That's all I got, unless there's any other discussion.
Ron, are we taking a vote on this?
We're going to amend it.
Josh? Thank you.
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of, Art.
So, I mean, in the agenda, it says you can have a motion and a second to agree to the following priorities of the promotion fund. Is that necessary? It's kind of a non-binding
If in
show of
fact-
support.
May I make a comment? If in fact you want to exclude A, B, C, that's fine, but D, I would like it, whereas the governing body directed me to tell these individuals they need to do semi-presentations, and it was voted on by the governing body.
I think we're only excluding B.
Yeah.
So I'll do the motion for the priorities will be A, C, and D.
Second, with the change that.
Is that what you had, Josh?
Yes.
With the change that promotion goes before capital.
Yes.
And these are considered our guidelines, right? I mean, because we can't really consider them anything else besides guidelines, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I see it that way.
Yeah.
Motion.
It's a spirit thing.
Yeah. As long as your heart's in the right place when you do it.
So I've got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Rux as it relates to this proposed action to accept items A, C, and D out of Josh's list. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley,
Aye.
Ronayne,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye.
excuse me, Lundman, Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bunceness,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Rux,
Throwing me for a loop, but aye.
Mayor Shoneman.
Abstain. Motion does carry. Next, we've got Airport FAA grant initiation request for federal assistance for the year 2020. Possible approval for the FAA grant initiation request for the federal assistance year 2020 and authorization for the city manager to sign the pre-application for the year 2020 grant. Lynn, what have you got?
Well, this pre-application is intended to notify the state aviation offices and the Federal Aviation Administration Airports District Office of the city's intent for the fiscal year funds available, and therefore the city doesn't plan on having a new project for 2020. However, the city intends to use 2020 entitlements for a multi-grant linked to the city's 2019 grant, and what I'm talking about is Taxiway C. The city gets approximately $1 million per year, and so in effect, between 2019 and 2020, we were going to commit our funds for Taxiway C, and then the feds gave us additional almost $2 million in discretionary funds to complete Taxiway C.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Remley. Carl, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Ruggs.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got recommendation on a bid for the utility sanitary department 2019 Riverside Lift Station renovation. Possible approval to award the bid to Dakota Pump and Control Incorporated in the amount of $82,500 and to authorize the city manager and finance officer to sign all necessary documents after approval by the city attorney. Robin.
Okay, you have the bid tab in front of you. It says lump sum bid. It's really 3 pumps that we're buying, so each at $27,500. That includes installation, materials, taking stuff in and out, changing some piping. It's fairly complicated, and these are big pumps. The reason why we're getting into this is because there's 2 factors. One was that we made some modifications to the discharge piping from this particular lift station, which handles basically everything from the southeast part of town. In fact, going all the way up to Superstop. So it's a major lift station that handles a lot of flow. Second thing is the flows that have been added into it are partially due to growth and partially due to the addition of AGP into our system. So it's very critical area. The reason for 3 pumps is 2 function on and off, and 1 is there for redundancy should we have a pump failure. So it's a very important piece of equipment, and seeing where we're at with flows and stuff, especially because we had such a wet year, we've added all the additional flows from groundwater and stuff into an aging storm sewer system or sanitary sewer system. So we would appreciate your approval of this, and we can move ahead with it.
Move approval.
Second. Got a motion from Rux and a second from Olson. Does anyone have any questions for Robin? Otherwise, Carl, take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Ruggs.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got change order number 2 and payment number 3 for the street maintenance concrete repair. Possible approval of change order 2 in the amount of $6,220 and pay estimate in the amount of $96,820.56 to CWF Masonry and Construction for work to the street maintenance concrete repair project. Robin, did I read that? Is that a negative $6,220?
That is a negative $6,200 on this change order. So we had a net increase over the whole project of a little over $1,000. So really what we're paying for on this one is just the stuff that has been done since the last time. They did primarily things in the next year's patch and seal area for our street department. The way we had it set up this year did help us a great deal in keeping things focused, so we didn't have near as many open work orders, and we were able to get things done in a more timely manner. The majority of what you're paying for here is going to be retainage and a little bit of additional work that was done toward the end of the year. So we're requesting the approval of change order and final pay estimate of $96,820.
Move change order number 2 and pay estimate number 3.
Second both.
Got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Johnson. Does anyone have any questions for Robin? Otherwise, Carl, give me a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Rux.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the approval for the bill list for November 25th, 2019. As you see on your screen in front of you, can I get a motion to pay the bills?
Move.
Second.
Get a motion from Bunceness and a second from Rux. Carl, can you give me a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Remley.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Rux.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Yeah, abstain. Motion does carry. Next, we've got the payroll pay period from November 10th, 2019 through November 23rd, 2019, and the city's share of Social Security, old age, and survivors insurance, retirement, health, and life insurance. Can I get a motion to make the payroll?
Moved. Move approval.
Got a motion from Johnson. Sorry, Olson, you barely slipped in there. You're a second on that one. Carl, can I get a roll call vote to make the payroll, please?
Councilmember Rex.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Bunceness.
Abstain.
Johnson.
Aye.
Rife.
Aye.
Lunsman.
Aye.
Ronayne.
Aye.
Remley.
Aye.
Mayor Shonneman.
Aye, motion does carry. Next, we've got the city manager's report. Lynn, tell us what you've got.
I'd like to highlight one of the items I put within my report, and that was information dealing with the park board. The park board last week actually did engineering interviews for the final design associated with the four-field softball complex master plan that they've been working on for several years. Helms was chosen to complete the final design and do the construction inspection. And so therefore, I expect Helms to present to the park board the final design sometime in February or March. And once they approve it, that plan will come to the city council. And if in fact you agree with the final plan, at that point, then you'll probably have to determine whether or not you're willing to issue bonds for the retired debt from their previous debt service they had to finance the project, because that's the only way that they would have sufficient funds to finance the project. And I just wanted you aware that from a timetable, what's going to happen probably in the next 3 or 4 months.
So you expect February, March to the Parks and Rec Board, and then pretty directly after that, it'll come to us.
Yes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lynn. Anything else?
Nope.
Otherwise, we will take a motion to move to executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Moved. Second.
Got a motion from Bunceness and a second from Rux. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.